Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Defiant Lawyer channel. My name is Chloe Corbett. I'm one of your co-hosts today. And with me, I have
Attorney Augustus Corbett, aka the Minister of Justice.
I'm also known as the Duchess of Justice. We have two very special guests today that we're going to introduce to you after our introduction. But if you've never been here before, remember this: we offer analysis of trending politics, policies, personalities, and pop culture to empower you to defy this unjust legal system. Before we get into today's topic, why don't you go ahead and like this video below and share this with your family and friends? We want to get this out today, guys. We are so excited to talk about the historic nomination of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. So if you're interested in
Ooh.
that, or if you feel your family friends are, share this video below. Before we get into it, let's hit it.
That Corbin and Corbett legal team fighting for the rights of the people. That father-daughter team investing in the youth when the system ain't treating them equal. Providing truth for our people, we able to reach them. So anytime you get accused for a crime and Lord knows you ain't do it, we here to get you through it. Exemplifying prudence and glorifying God, making sure you're compensated for other people's doings. Our vision is to be one of the best. We're small enough to focus on your matter throughout the neighborhoods of Dallas. Working constantly and making sure your rights are protected. A firm team of lawyers, aggressive, effective. A team that has your back in the courtroom. Two well-spoken black lawyers in the courtroom. Investing time and resources when it's evident that you were treated wrong. Now you walking out of Dallas courtroom with a settlement. Corbin and Corbett, the father-daughter legal tag team that has your back in the courtroom. Our purpose is simple: to obtain the favorable outcome for each client and glorify Christ in all we do. Our vision is to be one of the best and most...
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. We are so excited to get into this topic today. We're going to be discussing the historic nomination of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson to the United States Supreme Court. I am so excited to talk about this nomination and to share some of my disgust with the way that some senators handle her nomination. But before we get into that, you see these two guests that we have up here, these two accomplished women. I want to introduce them before we get this conversation started. So, first, I want to introduce Dr. Keitha Burnett. Dr. Keitha Burnett is a veteran educator, writer, and community activist. Dr. Burnett is a native of North Carolina. She graduated from the University of North Carolina, Greensboro, with a BA in history and political science. She continued her education at the University of North Dakota with a master's degree in public administration and a doctorate in public administration and policy from Florida International University. Dr. Burnett is the recipient of numerous academic awards and recognitions, such as Teacher of the Year, National Board Certified Teacher, Bethune Cookman College Outstanding Service Award in Education, and so much more. Dr. Burnett has served on the board of directors for Infamia Incorporated, a nonprofit organization that focuses on preserving the family, particularly among the migrant population. She is presently a member of South Florida's Writers Association. She also serves as Education Committee chairperson for the grassroots organization Rise Up Florida. Currently, she's on the faculty for Gulliver Prep in Florida, and she is also immensely interested in writing. She wrote her first book, The Last 180 Days, which chronicles the challenges as an independent nonprofit charter school operator. And this book prompted Dr. Burnett to explore broader issues. And she has a second book coming out in July 2022 called A Primer: Navigating Through Educational Policy in the 21st Century. Let's welcome Dr. Burnett to the channel. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Burnett. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all.
Next, we have just an amazing person, an amazing woman, um, the woman who brought me into life, who raised me up, who has just played such a an amazing role in my life, the firm's life, this channel's life. I cannot speak more highly of this woman, and that is my mother, Antonia Corbett. My mom, she is currently the chief operations officer for Corbett and Corbett, which is our law firm out of Dallas, Texas. So look, guys, she's the one behind the scenes running the law firm. Okay, we look to her to run the business side. Before this role, my mom retired from the state of Texas, where she worked every single day in child welfare. Welfare. She was a consultant, a supervisor, and a social worker. So she was out making sure that children were protected in the state of Texas and previously in the state of New York. Before going into welfare, my mom managed over 50 people in operations management for large Fortune 500 banks. And before relocating here to Texas with me and my brother and my dad, my mom earned her bachelor's of science degree in business management from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. Once she came to Texas, she earned a master's degree in social work from the University of Texas at Arlington. She also holds certification as a licensed master social worker from the state of Texas. So look, guys, when you combine the astute businesswoman and business skills that she has with the sensitivity of a social worker and child welfare, she has such a unique skill set. And mom, I'm so glad that you are finally here on the channel in person. Welcome to the channel. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Thank you. Doing well.
I'm so glad to hear that. Last but not least, Dad, why don't you go ahead and you're going to be moderating the topic today, right?
Yes, I am. I have that honor and pleasure to do so. I am, like you, Chloe, delighted to have both of these extraordinary women. And by the way, they are homegirls. They're from the same hometown. And
Yep.
I know Dr.
Yes.
Burnett through my wife. And we're just so happy to have Dr. Burnett with us. And look, I am nothing without my sweetheart. So, hey, what can I say about that? The better half of the two, okay? The better half of the two, no doubt about it. So, Dr. Burnett, I do want to go back to your book that has that you've released through Amazon. And by the way, Dr. Burnett is a real doctor. I mean, she's a PhD doctor. She's not one of these other kind of doctors. She's PhD. She's heavy duty. The book here, The Last 180 Days. I'm sure somewhere in this conversation she's going to give us some information and some how-tos on how to get this extraordinary book. I do know that it is available on Amazon, but throughout this broadcast, somewhere in this broadcast, we're going to give her the opportunity to tell us some things about this great book. Dr. Burnett, again, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so very much.
And you
And
are,
warm wishes from the state of Florida, actually, from Miami.
ooh, I've been there once in
Yes.
life, and the whole family, we went for a cruise, and we cruised out of Miami and spent a few days in Miami and just had a blast. So,
Loved it.
and that's another reason why we called on you, because we know that that Judge Kentanji Brown Jackson is a native Miamian. Is that a word?
Yes.
Is Miamian a word?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right.
It is.
So yes,
Yeah, her father served for many years as the chief attorney for Miami-Dade County Public Schools, where I worked for over 20 years and
Wonderful.
retired.
Wow.
Wonderful,
Wow.
excellent. So, and then you're also Rebels, you're also going to see several other reasons why we are so fortunate to have Dr. Burnett on with us today, as well as my wife. And so there are some things that I am sort of playing the role of being the producer. So that's really the only reason I'm here. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't even be here. I mean, I'm a thorn among roses here. So that's the only reason. I know you're sitting out there thinking, why is he up there on Women's History Month? That's it. That's the only reason. All right. So, there are a few things that I do want to do as we talk about this historic nomination, and then we're going to cut you all loose. Let's start with I see that it did, but it came back in. All right. So here we go. This is pardon me, I keep saying doctor, but Judge Brown Jackson's family. Here are her parents and her brother, I believe. And also, let me see. Also, we just saw her daughter and her husband, Dr. Jackson, who is a cancer surgeon, I understand. So this is her beautiful family. Now, Dr. Burnett, you know her father, right?
Yes, when I got, I remember very clearly when I got the charter. He is the one that signed my charter for Miami-Dade County Schools when I had Lawrence Academy. So I had worked with him personally during that time when I had the charter school.
And it's my understanding that she was actually born in Washington, D.C., but then the family relocated back to Miami where she was reared.
I'm not clear on that, but that may be true. I just know that I guess I focus more on her life here, going to public schools right here in Miami-Dade County, going to which right now Miami Palmetto is so proud to have her. She was on the debate team when she was in high school. And from my understanding, she did an outstanding job on the debate team. So this is something very early on, as well as her father. As you know, he was an American history teacher and went back to school to be an attorney.
That's right. He became an attorney. And speaking of her family, she made us all aware of the fact that she has a brother who's also an attorney. And she also has two uncles, I believe, who were police officers. One of them became the police chief in Miami, I believe. And she also informed us that she had an uncle, I believe an uncle, who is currently serving time in prison. I think she was letting America know I am the quintessential American and have the quintessential American family. On one side, I got those who are in the penal system, and on the other side, I got law enforcement. All of that is running through my veins. So in other words, America, there's no reason to fear me. I mean, I am one of you. My story is the typical American story. But all of a sudden, for many people, she has been demonized, and I'm using that term intentionally. I'm hearing and seeing all sorts of things, and that's one of the reasons why my wife said that she wanted to do something like this, because the narrative that is being put out about her is just, so incorrect. Now, my wife just sent me a message saying that her uncle's prison sentence was commuted. Sweetheart, speak up. I mean, if just go ahead and tell me on live air that I'm wrong. So
No, I believe that's what I heard, that
okay,
President Obama commuted his sentencing, or whatever, however you say it legally, but it was commuted by President Obama. I believe
okay,
that's what I heard.
all right. Can anyone confirm that?
I hadn't heard that,
Yeah.
but I like that she brought it up in her opening statements at the confirmation hearings. I think, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
that it shows that she truly does come from the quintessential American family, to where um, she has, parents who were educators, one who became an attorney, police officers, one who um, became mixed up in the legal system. And that may have been the motivation for her to even go to law school or to become a public defender. So I think, and we're going to get into this, but a lot of Republicans have falsely proclaimed that she doesn't have a judicial philosophy. But I think that her bringing out her life experiences, she was indirectly telling the senators and the American public watching at large that she does have a judicial philosophy, and all aspects of her family have dictated what that philosophy is.
Yes.
So we'll get into that later.
All right. Very good. So she was a district court. I mean, she had so many wonderful qualities that put her, that makes her the perfect person to sit on this court. She was a federal public defender. Okay, so she actually has experience representing criminal defendants. All right, and as a criminal defense lawyer, I so greatly appreciate that, the fact that she will carry that perspective onto the court with her. Also, she was on the Sentencing Commission. She was vice chairperson of the Sentencing Commission, and that's the organization that pretty much promulgates sentencing guidelines for the country, for federal prisons. And she was a sitting federal district judge, and that's what got so much attention during her confirmation hearing, some of the cases that she presided over, and we're going to look at that in just a moment. And then she was confirmed to sit on the D.C. Circuit, a federal federal court circuit. She sat there, I think, for a year, and which beautifully positioned her for this particular nomination. To back up, she is a Harvard undergrad graduate and a Harvard Law School graduate. I mean, she is probably more qualified for this position than most of the people who have sat on this court, to be quite honest. Now,
Yes, and let me just say, she graduated with honors in undergrad and in law school, from what I understand.
thank you. Thank you. I thought I'd read that, but I didn't want to see it without being able to substantiate it. So thank you for that. Now, when we look at, for example, the demographics of the Supreme Court, the court was established in 1789 on Article 3 of the Constitution. From its founding, there have been 115 justices, 115, until 1967. With the confirmation of Justice Thurgood Marshall, no African American served on the court. That was from 1789 to 1967. All the justices were white men. Every one of them, from 1789 to 1967. No woman served on the court until the confirmation of the late Justice Sandra Day O'Connor in 1981 was when she was confirmed. No Hispanic served on the court until the confirmation of Justice Sonia Sotomayor in 2009 was when she was confirmed. And last but certainly not least, and no African-American woman has served on the court until, hopefully, the confirmation of Justice Kentanji Brown Jackson in a few weeks. So you all listen, what do you think about the fact that the court has basically been a white male institution until Justice Marshall was confirmed.
I believe it just goes to.
Oh, go ahead.
But go on.
Yes, go ahead.
Dr. Burnett.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. No, go. Go
I
ahead,
was going to
Tony.
say, I just believe it just shows just how tilted everything has been. I mean, that's why this is so historic, 115 different justices on Scotus. And this would now be the first African-American female even nominated to serve on the court. It just parallels our history and the workings of our country and our nation, and the lack of representation, in our country. It just speaks volumes. But I'm so excited. I'm very elated that she will be the first Black female, just to be able to contribute to that body, to represent all of America. America is not just made up of white men. It's made up of different ethnicities. So I believe that the Supreme Court should reflect that.
Definitely. And I echo everything that Tony has just stated, because that is so true. I mean, we're looking at 115 years, and we saw the difficulty of this throughout history with all of the major cases. But we did have one justice, and that's Chief Justice Warren, which I do want to add, which when he made this decision about Brown versus Board, he said that, one thing that he had to do is that he had to make the decision, and that's why it's important to have a diverse board. But even though he was a white male, he was the first one to say, there's a time that try men's soul. So when a man began to seek his soul, he's going to vote differently. And he was the almost a determining vote for the Brown to pass in 1954. But that's another story. But it's not until now that we actually have a woman, and I think a Black woman. We have been so marginalized, not just with the Supreme Court, but in everything. I think every Black woman, they will shake their heads in terms of they feel that if there is a meeting, there was a meeting before the meeting. If they're in, different organizations, and what they say, if someone else rewords it and say it in a different way, then it's accepted. It's a lot of little microaggressions that may occur, but at the end of the day, the question is, there are a lot of very qualified women of color, African American women. And she is one that has stood the test. She stayed the ground, and there's nothing that can be said. The things that we have heard in the last couple of weeks, it does not make any sense when we're looking at the character and the integrity of someone of her stature. And to try to tear down that, I'm not understanding at any level.
Well,
Yeah, I would.
let me just say this, Chloe, real quickly. A little Tweety bird just got on my shoulder and told me that I'm wrong, that former Justice Sandra Day O'Connor had passed. Now, that's a big blooper. Big one. Big one. So it turns out that she's still living. My bad, Justice O'Connor, because you are one of my favorite justices, by the way. So
Yes.
I just wanted to
I
make
think
that
she was
correction.
very fair-minded. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So there's that correction. All right, Chloe.
Yes, I was just gonna say it's not surprising at all that it's taken this. It took almost 200 years to get a Black justice on the Supreme Court, and we're kind of seeing that playing out with the way that the confirmations have gone this past week, and the baseless attacks that the Republicans have placed on Judge Kentanji Brown Jackson.
We're gonna look at those. We're gonna look at some of that in just a moment, by the way.
Yeah. So I think it's a reflection of the state of this country and the way it's been for hundreds of years.
Yes. All right. Now, one of the people that the person that she talks a lot about whenever she takes the, make comments is this lady. And I certainly want to not forget Justice Constance Baker Motley, who was the very first African-American federal judge. Very first African-American federal judge. And she was also the first African-American woman to argue a case in front of the Supreme Court. And might I add, she actually won 9 of the 10 cases that she argued in front of the court. So Justice, soon to be Justice Jackson, I believe. She mentions Judge Constance Baker Motley as her mentor. So I didn't want to go past shouting out that trailblazer. All right, now with that said, let's look at some of this treatment or mistreatment that Judge Jackson received this past week.
Person, a good friend. You have a wonderful family. You should be proud, and your faith matters to you. What faith are you, by the way?
Senator, I am Protestant.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Non-denominational.
Okay. Could you fairly judge a Catholic?
Senator, I have a record of
I think
fairly
the answer would be yes.
judging everyone.
I believe you can. I'm just asking this question because how important is your faith to you?
Senator, personally, my faith is very important. But as you know, there's no religious test in the Constitution under Article 6, and
there will be none with me.
And it's very important to set aside one's personal views about things in the role of a judge.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I believe you can. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how faithful would you say you are in terms of religion? You know, I go to church probably 3 times a year, so that speaks poorly of me. Or do you attend church regularly?
Well, Senator, I am reluctant to talk about my faith in this way just because I want to be mindful of the need for the public to have confidence in my ability to separate out my personal views.
Well, how would you feel if a senator up here said, your faith, a dogma lives loudly within you, and that's of concern? How would you feel if somebody up here on our side said, you know, you attend church too much for me, or your faith is a little bit different to me, and they would suggest that it would affect your decision? Would you find that offensive?
Senator,
I would if I were you. I found it offensive when they said it about Judge Barrett. The reason I ask these questions is
another former chair of the committee and senator from South Carolina.
Okay, so that was a little bit of the treatment that she received. Ladies, what does her faith have to do with this?
Nothing.
Absolutely.
And I think people, it really doesn't. And I would like to add, you know, I'm a history teacher, and one thing that all of us know is that where does law come from? That comes from religion. So it's, yes, we do separate it. It's the objectivity, but all law is based on some kind of value of religion or faith. If we look at the 10 Commandments and all these other things. So if you're going to ask the question, you got to answer the entire question, not part of it. It seems like to attack, you would have to address the entire question and look at the beginning of where does law begin.
That's a great point.
And he didn't do that.
That's a great point.
It sure is. And I would say, of course, we know, you know, I'm a faith person, committed to my faith, but when you have the law and she's a judge, as she kept saying during this past week, she's bound by the law, the established law, to rule within that. You know, of course, in my opinion, our faith should be reflected in our lifestyle and behavior and integrity and our compassion. But she still has the Constitution of the United States, you know, and all of these other statutes that you and Chloe could talk about, that she has to, you know, work a framework that she has to work within. But the only reason Senator, in my opinion, Graham brought that up was because of what he said. Senator Dianne Feinstein asked this of a formal nominee, you know, Justice Amy Barrett. So that's what this was. It was just a get back. I'm going to get back at you all because you all, as one of our, when I say our, one of the Republican nominees, this type of questioning regarding her religion. That's what I think.
Yeah, it's all political theater. And it was funny. It was actually in that exchange a little funny watching Senator Graham. You can tell he's grandstanding because not just a year ago he voted to confirm her to the federal appellate position that President Biden nominated her for. So I feel like he is trying to have some political theater with his constituents out of South Carolina with that question and with the way that he was handling the question. Another thing that struck out to me too is he continually interrupted her as well when she was attempting to answer his question, to Dr. Burnett's point. Well, I think you should, or you know, I don't do this, or so again, it just goes to show he doesn't respect even her answers to give her the full time to respond to the question that he asked her as well.
And as she said, there is not a religious test for federal office. In fact, we have the First Amendment, which protects us from government intrusion into our religion. And standing in front of judges, having stood in front of many judges, I would not want to know that a judge is. I really wouldn't want a judge to bring his or her religion into a case and make religion a big deal. And I'm a committed Christian. In fact, I'm a preacher. But you know, if you got a judge on the bench who's a firebrand Christian or firebrand Muslim, that if he's a firebrand Christian, he may cause the non-Christian to feel like, hey, I'm not going to get a fair shake in here. Or if he's a firebrand Muslim and the defendant is a Christian, the Christian may feel like, I'm getting ready to go to jail because this guy doesn't like Christians. Or if he's an atheist, so the line of questioning was, to me, inappropriate. But as you all said, he was trying to make a point. He should have given her the opportunity to really explain herself, or just not ask the question, as Dr. Burnett said, and as Chloe said, it's political theater. All right, let's go back. Let's look at it a little more.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, congratulations. Well-deserved honor here. You have worked hard all your life, and you have much to be proud of. I have said in the past that I think it's good for the court to look like America, so count me in on the idea of making the court more diverse. And in the history of our country, we've never had an African-American woman serve on the court. But I also said that didn't get much coverage. I want the court to play a particular role in America. One is make it more look like the country, but also make it operate in the confines of the Constitution. That didn't get a lot of coverage. So the hearings are going to be challenging. for you, informative for the public, and respectful by us. I hope we can meet those criteria. It won't be a circus. We're off to a good start. Chairman Grassley couldn't get the first word out of his mouth before they shut down the place, so that's off to a good start. Most of us couldn't go back to our offices during Kavanaugh without getting spit on. Hope that doesn't happen to y'all. I don't think it will. As to the historic nature of your appointment, I understand. But when I get lectured about this from my Democratic colleagues, I remember Janice Rogers Brown, an African-American woman, that was filibustered by the same people praising you. I remember Miguel Estrada, one of the finest people I ever met. Completely wiped out. Didn't make it through the gang of 14, whatever gang I was in. I've been in so many I can't remember. He didn't make the cut. Well-lived life just completely ruined. So if you're Hispanic or African-American conservative, it's about your philosophy. Now it's going to be about the historic nature of the pick. Now it's going to be about your philosophy. The bottom line here is when it is about philosophy, when it's somebody of color on our side, it's about we're all racist if we ask hard questions. It's not going to fly with us. We're used to it by now, at least I am. So it's not going to matter a bit to any of us. We're going to ask you what we think you need to be asked. And Senator Hawley, you need to ask her about her record as a district court judge. You should. I hope you do. And we'll see what she says. Very fair game. So congratulations. It's going to be a couple of interesting.
So what do you think about the tone here? What do you think about those comments?
Well,
I
one
think
thing
it's
I want to
totally
say.
unnecessary.
Oh,
I think it's
go ahead.
unnecessary. I think it's totally unnecessary. I think his tone, again, he is just trying to make a point. And it just bothers me, you all, that here she is standing on the merit of her own work, her hard work, her dedication to her craft, which has been in the legal field. And he's bringing up all this outside noise of what has happened to other nominees, which she has nothing to do with. She doesn't control how those other senators have carried themselves or acted. I mean, I just think it's just totally, it's just disturbing for him to be a U.S. senator and to bring her and all that baggage that he's carrying because of some formal performances from a few senators on the Democratic side.
Dr. Burnett?
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. But what has occurred now is that politics has surpassed civility. That's where we are now. And I don't know whether we can, at sometimes I don't care whether we were Democratic or Republican, there was some meeting ground that we could at least be civil with one another. We're not there yet. And at least at one time we were there. I don't even think they even took a moment to look at those 570 written decisions that she submitted. And she was very detailed to show. She was showing that I look at things very thoroughly. I'm not looking at things based on maybe how I feel, but it's based on rule of law. She submitted 570. Did they even bother to consider these things and to see how detailed, even more so than most judges? Did anyone bother to even bring that up? No, it wasn't even relevant.
We're coming to
and
that.
The reason that she did that is because she said, I want to be what? In law, you want to be transparent. What am I thinking?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why she did that. But that was not enough to be transparent.
Let me play a little bit more. Chloe, we'll come to you right after this.
And we're off to a better start than we have been in the past. And the one thing I can promise you, you will not be vilified. You will not be attacked for your religious views. You will not be accused of something that you could not defend yourself against until it was too late. Thank you. I have no doubt that you find child pornography disgusting as the rest of America. You're a mother. You seem to be a very nice person. Are you aware of how many images are out there on the internet involving children and sexually compromising situations?
Senator, I'm not aware of the numbers, but I've seen the images in my
and they are disgusting,
role
right? Well, let me
as
tell
a
you the
judge.
numbers. In 2021, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children Cyber Tip Line received 29.3 million reports of apparent child sexual exploitation containing 85 million images, videos, and other files. That's in 2021. It's up. In 2019, it was less. So there's an epidemic of this on the internet. That if you go out on the internet, there are millions of pictures of kids being abused. When it comes to sentencing child pornography possession cases, do you routinely discount the fact that a computer was used?
Thank you, Senator, for allowing me to address this concern. The guidelines related to child pornography were drafted at a time in which a computer was not used for the majority, if not almost all, of these kinds of horrible crimes. The guidelines have enhancements in them.
In two areas that you said you disagree, what are those two areas?
At the time that the guidelines were drafted, it was an aggravating factor, a substantial aggravating factor, to use a computer in order to distribute and disseminate the images, because the ordinary crime was not committed by computer. So the
Would you now agree with me that computers are sort of the venue of choice for child pornographer people?
Yes, Senator.
Okay, so here's my point. If you believe, as I do, the computer has created a bigger demand, there are more photos out there because of the internet, more websites exposing this garbage, wouldn't you want to deter people from going down that road?
Senator, this crime is among the most difficult.
No, answer my question. Wouldn't you want to deter people from going down the road of using the computer that allows these people to have access to millions of photos because of the technology? I want those people deterred.
Senator,
so if you're listening to my voice today and you're on a computer looking at child pornography and you get caught, I hope your sentence is enhanced, because the computer and the internet is feeding the beast here, that all these images out there are going to be more over time because people use computers. Now, didn't you also say that the number of images should not be considered as a sentence enhancement?
Senator, with respect to the computer, one of the most effective deterrents is one that I imposed in every case and that judges across the country impose in every case, which is substantial supervision. Any of these
wait a
defendants.
minute, Judge. You think it is a bigger deterrent to take somebody who's on a computer looking at sexual images of children in the most disgusting way is to supervise their computer habits versus putting them in jail?
No, Senator, I didn't say versus.
That's exactly what you said. I think the best way to deter people from getting on a computer and viewing thousands and hundreds and over time maybe millions, the population as a whole, of children being exploited and abused every time somebody clicks on is to put their ass in jail, not supervise their computer usage.
Okay. Chloe?
So before I address all of that diatribe that he just did, I want to go back to the clip you played before of where Senator Graham said that when there are, nominees of color who are conservative, then their question about their judicial philosophy versus quote unquote liberal judges they look at their credentials. Now, look, it is important for the senators to know what Judge Jackson's judicial philosophy is, because as a Supreme Court justice, what she's going to do is interpret the Constitution, interpret precedent and cases that come before her when she makes her decisions on the court. But what she was skillfully doing in these confirmation hearings, she was saying, look, hey, I don't have a judicial philosophy. I'm not necessarily a textualist, meaning I don't just look at the plain language of the Constitution. I'm not necessarily strictly an originalist, which is where you look at what the Constitution meant at the time when the Constitution was written. I'm not exactly a moralist like Judge Thurgood Marshall, who looked at like the ethos and the feelings around the Constitution. What she said is she has a methodology, which is where she starts from a neutral position and then she looks at the facts and the particular circumstances for that case. And then that's when she makes her decision when she gives an order. So
Excellent. Excellent. Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. 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 Excellent.
Very good, Chloe.
Yes.
Yes.
So what they're trying to do is, okay, she's not falling into this liberal type of judicial philosophy, so we're going to pin one on her. We're going to say that when she was a judge, she was soft on crime, on child porn cases. We're going to say that she's a proponent of critical race theory. We're going to say that, you know, she is liberal on gender issues. When she's just saying, I started at a neutral position, I look at the facts and the circumstances of the case then, and then I make my decision. So that's what all of this is about. In terms of the child porn cases, what people have to realize is that there are sentencing guidelines that federal judges must follow. And at one point, the sentences were mandatory. So there was a guideline. You look at what the charge is, you go down the list. Okay, this is what your sentence is. But that has changed in recent years to where the guidelines are now advisory, meaning that the judge uses them in a advisory capacity, but can look at other factors with the case. And I was just at a legal conference this entire week with a bunch of criminal defense attorneys, a lot of them who do federal work, federal defense work, a lot of public defenders. And they were telling me that, yes, in recent years, a lot of judges use the sentencing guidelines in an advisory manner. So it's not just Judge Jackson who did that, it's a lot of federal judges. And so this is just, I mean, it's just all theater again.
As a matter of fact, so we've stood in front of many judges representing our clients who were being sentenced. And judges are looking at a number of things, just like Judge Jackson explained again, and again, and again. Judges are looking at the law. Judges are looking at the facts. If it's a felony case here in Texas, judges get a PSI, which stands for pre-sentencing investigation report. If it's a juvenile case, it's a PDR, a predisposition report. And that report has all sorts of things on it to try and give the judge some idea about who this person is beyond the offense that they're accused of committing. And so the judge is looking at all of these factors, as well as the arguments of the prosecutor and the arguments of the defense lawyer, and sometimes the testimony of witnesses, the testimony of the accused. And so, Chloe, as you were saying, the judges have discretion to look at all these factors and to say, no, I'm not going with the prosecutor on this case. I see some redeeming qualities in this person. Or the judge could say, I don't see any redeeming qualities in this person. I'm not going along with this deal. You all need to take that back and work that out. I'm leaning toward throwing the book at this guy, right? They got that discretion. And we've seen that happen so many times. And these Holly, Graham, Cruz are lawyers. They know this. They were grandstanding and what they call it, mansplaining. on Justice on Judge on Judge Jackson. Yeah.
And let me just say what you just said. All three of them, those three senators you named, are lawyers. They know the law. They know the Constitution and all of that. So to
We
me, I
hope.
find it so disturbing that they are taking advantage of the lay people. I'm a non-lawyer, and they're taking advantage. They're taking the sound bites. They're intentionally leaving out important context of what her opinion said and her sentencing and all of that were indicative of. They're taking advantage of the common man out here, the common man and woman. And so then you have people that I see online just repeating foolishness because they don't know the law, and they just repeat what these uncouth politicians are saying, in my opinion. You know, I'm no longer a state employee, so I can I have more liberty to say what I want to say. I mean, just unprincipled, uncouth politicians, and they have these people just repeating this stuff, not knowing the facts. You know, and I'm sure as we continue talking, there have been other people who have gone behind these senators and fact checked what they have accused this woman of
Yes.
being and the type of labels that they have put on her. It's just totally,
Yes.
it's embarrassing to me as an American, and it's disturbing and problematic, and whatever kind of adjective you can put on it, it's despicable.
Well,
You
a
know,
little more.
what I find interesting is that Fox News actually did not support everything that the senators were doing. So that's telling you that they kind of went too far in their
Wow, I didn't know that.
mudslinging. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when that happens, it's already telling you already that they went too far. Because when Fox News was, which is a conservative news station, actually did not support all, particularly the one on pornography.
Very good.
Okay.
A little more, and we're going to come back to you, Dr. Burnett, for some comments. Let's go. That's enough of Senator Graham. Let's look at Texas Senator Ted Cruz.
Dred was.
We went to law
That was
school
kinda
together.
right, too.
We were on the law review together. We were a year apart.
Happily so, I hope, Senator.
We were not particularly close, but we were always friendly and cordial.
We were.
And you and I had a very positive and productive meeting in my office where we discussed a number of things, including you were there with former Senator Doug Jones. And we discussed how he and I and a number of other senators had, for 2 different years, participated in reading aloud on the Senate floor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from a Birmingham jail, which is one of the truly great advocacies for civil rights our nation has seen. And you and I talked together about our shared admiration for Dr. King. When Senator Grassley questioned you earlier, he asked in particular about Dr. King's speech on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, where he said most critically, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." Do you agree with what Dr. King said in that speech there?
I do, Senator.
As we were discussing it, you referenced in my office a speech that you gave in January of 2020 at the University of Michigan School of Law. And after our discussion, I pulled a copy of your speech and read the speech in its entirety. And there were elements of the speech that I thought were really powerful. And let me say, your opening remarks yesterday were powerful and inspirational as well. And I think you and your family, the journey you have taken to becoming a federal judge, to becoming a federal Court of Appeals judge, I think demonstrates the incredible promise and the incredible opportunity this nation offers all of us. As I read your speech at the University of Michigan Law School, however, there was a portion that surprised me. And in particular, in that speech, you referenced the work of, quote, acclaimed investigative journalist Nicole Hannah-Jones, and her, and again, this is a quote from the speech, provocative thesis that America was born in, provocative thesis that the America that was born in 1776 was not the perfect union that it purported to be. And indeed, Ms. Hannah-Jones, in her 1619 projects, describes the central thesis of the 1619 project, which the New York Times laid out as a revisionist look of history, revising American history. And Ms. Hannah-Jones described her central thesis as, quote, one of the primary reasons the colonists decided to declare independence was because they wanted to protect the institution of slavery. Now, that claim is a highly contested historical claim. Do you agree with Ms. Hannah-Jones that one of the primary reasons the colonists decided to declare independence is because they wanted to protect the institution of slavery?
Thank you, Senator. When I gave that speech at the University of Michigan, I was asked to speak on Martin Luther King Day. And every year they have a Martin Luther King Day speaker. And I gave a speech about Black women in the civil rights movement. Most of the speech, if not all of the speech, was focused on African American women, their contributions to the civil rights movement, unsung contributions in many cases, and then some of the more recent African American women who have made claims, who have done things in our society. One slide was of Ms. A journalist, as you say, who made that statement, and I called it provocative. It is not something that I've studied. It doesn't come up in my work. I was mentioning it because it was, at least at that time, something that was talked about and well known to the students that I was speaking to at the law school.
So are you aware that since the 1619 project came out, that it has been roundly refuted by very respected historians, including Gordon Wood of Brown University, including James McPherson of Princeton University. McPherson called it a, quote, very unbalanced, one-sided account which lacks content and perspective. And indeed, it was so thoroughly refuted that the New York Times quietly altered the digital version to remove references to 1619 as the year of America's true founding and the moment America began. Were you aware of that?
I was not.
1619 project is...
All right, Dr. Burnett. All right, so Ted Cruz takes her into the 1619 project. We all know what the 1619 project is. Nicole Hannah-Jones is the author of that project and recently released a book on that topic. And she's in the dubious position, Judge Jackson, of having to comment on the 1619 project. What are your comments about that line of questioning?
Once again, they're trying to fish for the right answer for their constituents in this case, because I majored in history at the University of North Carolina.
I like that answer. Love that answer.
And what ends up happening, I just want the preferences. When you talk about critical race theory, it's not what now most people are saying it's a curriculum, it's a motive. It's one perspective of looking at something. It's a theory of one. If I'm going to be objective, I can look at this and I can look at 10 others. And that's what you do. You refute it, but you don't attack people simply because they bring one theory up. And that's what I find very interesting, is that you're bringing one, but let's look at all of them. And that's exactly what she did. What did she say? One slide. But she actually said there were a lot of people that she examined. So so are you indirectly saying we cannot even say it? That's where we're going now. And that is a major issue.
That's where we are in Texas. We're there.
In Florida.
Yeah. Yep. GOP states. Yep. We're there. I mean, here we're removing books from libraries. So we're there. And I'll come to my sweetheart and Chloe, back to you in just a moment. Just a little bit more here. Hold on.
Closely intertwined with a movement that is called critical race theory. Critical race theory, as you know, originated at your and my alma mater at the Harvard Law School. In your understanding, what does critical race theory mean? What is it?
Senator, my understanding is that critical race theory is it is an academic theory that is about the ways in which race interacts with various institutions. It doesn't come up in my work as a judge. It's never something that I've studied or relied on, and it wouldn't be something that I would rely on if I was on the Supreme Court.
So critical race theory, as you know, has its origins in the critical legal studies movement, which also came from Harvard Law School, from a number of critical legal studies professors, crits as they were known when we were in law school, who are explicitly Marxists. And they find their origins in Marxism, although critical legal studies frames society as a fundamental battle between socioeconomic classes. Critical race theory frames all of society as a fundamental and intractable battle between the races. It views every conflict as a racial conflict. Do you think that's an accurate way of viewing society in the world we live in?
Senator, I don't think so, but I've never studied critical race theory and I've never used it. It doesn't come up in the work that I do as a judge.
You gave a speech in April of 2015.
Okay, sweetheart, talk to us a little bit about critical race theory as Ted Cruz was, go ahead.
Okay. Well, it seems as if in my humble opinion, it's just another buzzword that many in the GOP have come up with to incite fear amongst, especially, I think, suburban Caucasian parents. I've been on a show with you asking you to explain to us the lay people, what is critical race theory, because it originated in law school, as Senator Cruz just said. So the fact that we have so many people going to these local school board meetings and acting a fool. I mean, just disturbing. I mean, just acting, just so unseemly about something that is not even taking place in public school. Again, it just goes back to show us the state of America. Okay, go on.
I'm sorry, go ahead and finish. I thought you were coming.
Yeah, that's it. I just think that to me, they will want to try to say that she would somehow insert the theory of critical race theory in her opinions on the court if she were to be confirmed. And she's saying
issues with education.
Not come up. Say that again, Dr. Burnett.
I said particularly in the area of education, with the curriculum, with the critical race theory, particularly K through 12, and now they are even talking about colleges.
So let's just ask an educator, Dr. Burnett. Let's just ask an educator flat out, point blank. is critical race theory being taught in school?
You know what? I had a student, I'm going to tell you the exact story, to sit down with me because he asked me the exact same question. I said, you know what? I've been in education over 30 years, taught advanced placement, all levels. I said, critical race theory is generally what we got at the PhD level. I don't discuss that with high school kids or anyone that I have come across. It has never been an issue. I said, in 30 years. And then the father, his father works, where I am too. And he was surprised to hear that because most people think that there's a set curriculum of curriculum race. It's not. It's something that generally is debated, like at the Harvard Law School, at the PhD level. But for K through 12 kids, you don't even go in that direction. You're getting the basic advanced placement exams. They have a set curriculum. And already all states have their own set curriculum. Critical race theory is not part of that. So
Okay.
that is not true.
So thank
And
you
it
for
has not
saying
been true.
Thank you for saying that. Let's go a little deeper because the white conservatives would say, well, the words critical race theory may not be taught or used in primary school. The actual words critical race theory or CRT, but like my wife said, those words are being used by politicians to scare whites. So let's go a little deeper. One of the tenets of critical race theory, I learned critical race theory in law school 20 years ago. And like you said, it is definitely not something that most people even know anything about. And
No, they don't.
now here's the question. Here's my question for you, Dr. Burnett. Chloe, jump in. Anybody? Tony? All right. So the word critical race theory is not used. But one of the basic tenets of critical race theory is the fact that America is systemically racist. So is that principle a principle that critical race theory propagates? Is that taught in school?
Not directly. Let's take, for example, you taking an AP exam and you're writing an essay question. It's up to that student to come up with a perspective. You can come up with any perspective you want to. So if a student comes up that and they show that they have to pull documents, let's say a document analysis, so they may come up to their own conclusion, things that may be related to critical race theory. But the conclusion was not drawn by the teacher. It was drawn by the students because it's based on a set of documents.
So to your knowledge, based on your 30 years of experience, teachers are not in the classroom. And I know this is anecdotal because, I mean, you don't know what's going on across the country. But based on your experience for 30 years and 30 years of education.
If you teach correctly, if you don't think for students.
So
that's the number one thing.
So are teachers in the classroom saying America is systemically racist and all white people are oppressors and colonialists and racist, white supremacists? Are teachers saying that sort of thing in the classroom?
I haven't had that experience, but I have read about countless other things that are going on in the classroom, things being done. But those are the exceptions. But for the most part, people who are educators, people who have been trained, if you see all of these issues that are going on, they're not usually people that are seasoned veterans or in education. And that's one of the major problems that's occurring, is that people are not attracted and going into education because it is a place of discussion, debate. So if a student, you have the students to come up with their position on certain issues. Critical race theory or elements of it may be part of their answer, but to another student, it may not be. So
is critical race theory, let me ask a more pointed question because I agree with you 100%. So that was a general question. Let me ask a more specific question. To your knowledge, is there a is there a curriculum that is being used in any primary school, to your knowledge, that teaches or embraces, includes critical race theory?
Absolutely not. Absolutely
And
not.
I think Dr. Burnett broke it down well about the educator asking the question and it being up to the student to decide which direction they want
Yes,
to take. Yeah.
we
And
Yes,
I
can't.
agree with
Yes,
I
mom
do
exactly.
too.
too.
Yeah, I agree with mom too about critical race theory kind of being the boogeyman for even teaching about systemic racism in the classroom. Because to me, it is true that this country has a history of systemic racism. And I don't and so let me can Dr. Burnett, let me ask you this. So to your knowledge, teachers are not outright saying there is a history of systemic racism in this country, but will they be teaching about, at least where you teach, you're an educator at, slavery,
Right.
the Jim Crow,
Uh,
all
well,
of
now
that?
I'm teaching women. I have my, I'm teaching my own courses that I created now, but now I teach women's
Okay.
studies and citizen in the Constitution. So I'm away from the traditional courses, but the traditional courses, uh, the first thing that you learn is that the key term, if you look at any of the standards, it says students will be able to analyze. Students will be able to discuss. If you only give them one side of anything, they aren't going to be able to do any of those. So, yes, they are exposed to various readings or documents that they interpret. And it is very clear when you're taking any kind of exam that it's up to the student's interpretation based on what they extrapolate from anything. That's the whole idea. So a teacher is not telling them what to do, they show them how to do it. So there's a
What,
major difference. You teach them how. Teachers are facilitators. We
well,
teach
what
them
about
how
in
to
the
think.
lower grades, like first
That's more
grade,
a little bit
second
more
grade, where they
difficult
can't
because I
come?
don't know. I
Okay.
think they're more kind of like general, just basic things that they learn. But once again, that's set by the state.
Now,
Yeah.
And
I
that
taught.
has never been an issue.
That's right. That's where I was going. I taught school for a minute, and we were given the curriculum, and we had to follow that
Right.
curriculum. We had
Mm-hmm.
to test at the end of the year based on that curriculum, and we were judged by how well our students did with those end of grade tests, which were based on the curriculum that we were given. Now, I taught hard sciences. I taught chemistry and physical science. So, we didn't
Right.
have any occasion really to get into anything about history and so forth. But you have, with your 30 years of experience as an educator, a PhD level educator, you have confirmed for us that, to your knowledge, critical race theory is not a part of any curriculum that you are aware of. And if a teacher is teaching on the subject of slavery, which is a part of American history, it is up to the student
Mm-hmm.
to come up with the
Do the
deductions.
interpretation.
Exactly. So
Mm-hmm.
then it's a boogeyman, like my wife said. It is being used to gender political. It is political fodder, is what it is, right? The GOP figured out this is a really good one right here to really get folks out to the polls, and so critical race theory has become that wood for the fire that's burning in the hearts of a lot of people. Go ahead, Chloe.
I have a question for the panel. So, the reason why I believe one of the reasons why they're harping on critical race theory and the child porn sentencing is because they can't pin Judge Jackson down. Because, like I said before, she says she believes in a methodology, not a philosophy, which is what she looks at looks at the she goes in neutral, looks at the facts. So, do you all think she should have come out and said I support this, this, and this, or I have this type of philosophy. What are you all's thoughts?
I think she handled it the best way to circumvent, even further issues. But she had to also had a strategy in going into that confirmation hearing, and she did it the correct way because what they were doing were putting up roadblocks that she would have no way out. So that's what she was circumventing, the roadblocks. And I think she did a great job in doing that and not pinpointing her to one thing. It's not that she didn't have an opinion about it, but it was not relevant for this confirmation hearing.
And I would add
And
to
that's
that.
exactly what she said.
Go ahead, baby.
Yeah, that's exactly what she said. She said, I'm a human being. I have plenty of opinions. But what do they have to do with me being a judge when I have to, stay within a certain boundary and parameter of judging these disputes and matters that come before me? So that's exactly what she said.
Now, I watched a lot of the hearing, and not only did she skillfully avoid the political traps that they set for her, there were a couple of times that she even suggested that she would be conservative on some issues. Okay? There was one particular thing that she said, if I can see it here. She said, she was asked to one question, she said, I am focusing on original public meaning because I'm constrained to interpret the text. Now, she says, I am focusing on original, Chloe, original public meaning because I'm constrained to interpret the text. So while she didn't articulate a clear judicial philosophy, and you're right, she kept saying her methodology of how she decide cases, she used the word original. So was that a buzzword for those GOP senators to the panel? Was that a buzzword to indicate that she may be an originalist in her interpretation, in her judicial philosophy in some instances? Was she just trying to say what she needed to say? Because that stood out to me when I heard it.
It could have been.
I believe,
It-
go on, Chloe.
No, go ahead, Mom, please.
I believe that she was saying that she really, and this is what I got from her, and this is just my interpretation, because in my line of work as a consultant in child welfare, I had to look at cases, hundreds of cases of children, being victims of sex abuse, physical abuse, neglect, all of that. And I would have to make a ruling and, decisions as to whether the children get to live in the home with their parents or caregivers, or whether they needed to be placed outside the home in foster care. I really believe she was saying, I'm just trying to be as fair-minded and as sensitive and as non-biased as I can when I am deciding these cases. In fact, on the fourth day, they had the American Bar Association representatives there who said they had contacted.
I had to give you some applause on that. Because that is so very important for lawyers, that the judge, that they're dealing with a fair-minded judge. But go ahead.
Right. And let me share this with you and Chloe as lawyers. And you all know, when you all get a case, sometimes well, whose court is it in? Because you all know, you have a feel of how that judge rules. Well, after this woman, this judge, Brown Jackson, was evaluated, the American Bar Association conducted this evaluation. One of the representatives said that they reached out to over 2,800 judges, lawyers, prosecutors, court administrators, everyone. They actually made successful contact with 250 people who had direct contact with Judge Jackson in the courtroom, who were up close to her, who had been a part of her court, either as a prosecutor or as a defense attorney. All of them said, listen to this. One prosecutor said that when they would get the draw to see what courtroom their case would be in, if they got Judge Jackson, the prosecutor said she was smart. She was a smart judge without any biases. So they will all be glad to get in her court. They say that none of the prosecutors or defense attorneys observed any advocacy or her being pro defendant, her being pro pedophile, any of that. They contacted over 250. They said that they expressed no concern of Judge Jackson bias towards defendants, and they all rejected any allegation of her being soft on crime. And I bring that up because being in child welfare, I've had to remove children who were victims of sex abuse and victims of child pornography. I had to supervise folks who had to go and remove these kids from that unsafe environment. And for them to throw out these labels so loosely against this woman who has just done it right, seemingly all her life. The extensive research that they did upon her life, they investigated her. And this is all they could come up with, looking at 8 of her cases, and specifically one with this child porn, the Hawkins case. It speaks volumes as to her integrity, as to her honest living, as to her, in fact, they kept saying that she was irreproachable. This is what the prosecutors and defense attorneys were saying. She was smart, she was intelligent, she was fair-handed. All of that they said, regardless as to what side of arguments you had in front of her. This is what the American Bar Association Standing Committee on Federal Judiciary, this is what they come up with. And they said they unanimously gave her a well-qualified rating, which is the highest rating they can give. So that's why I say I think it's such a disservice for these politicians to just have these lay people out here repeating this foolishness that they said during this confirmation.
Very good. I know that Dr. Burnett is down in Miami. It's beautiful there. I don't want to hold her much longer. There's so much more to say. I want to watch just a couple other things here. Please, you all be patient with me. Dr. Burnett, I'm coming to you because of something that Ted Cruz said. Just a second.
At the University of Chicago, in which you described the job you do as a judge, and you said sentencing is just plain interesting because it melds together myriad types of law, criminal law, and of course constitutional law, critical race theory. So you described in a speech to a law school what you were doing as critical race theory. And so I guess I would ask, what did you mean by that when you gave that speech?
With respect, Senator, the quote that you are mentioning there was about sentencing policy. It was not about sentencing. I was talking about the policy determinations of bodies like the Sentencing Commission when they look at a laundry list of various academic subjects as they consider what the policies should be.
Okay, but you were vice chair of the Sentencing Commission, so let me ask again, what did you mean by, because that was an official responsibility of yours, what did you mean by what you were doing was critical race?
What I meant was that there are a number of, that slide does not show the entire laundry list of different academic disciplines that I said relate to sentencing policy, but none of that relates to what I do as a judge.
So let me ask you a different question. Is critical race theory taught in schools? Is it taught kindergarten through 12th?
Senator, I don't know. I don't think so. I believe it's an academic theory that's at the law school level.
As you may recall, during the confirmation hearings of Justice Amy Coney Barrett, there was a great deal of attention paid to the fact that Justice Barrett served as a board member on the Board of Trustees of a religious private school, and the press focused very intensely on the views of that school. In your questionnaire to this committee, you disclosed that you are similarly on a board, specifically the Board of Trustees for the Georgetown Day School, and that you've been a board member since 2019 and you're currently still a board member. Is that correct?
That is correct.
In regard to the Georgetown Day School, you've publicly said, quote, "Since becoming a member of the GDS community 7 years ago, Patrick and I have witnessed the transformative power of a rigorous progressive education that is dedicated to fostering critical thinking, interdependence, and social justice." When you refer to social justice and the school's mission on social justice, what did you mean by that?
Thank you, Senator, for allowing me to address this issue. Georgetown Day School has a special history that I think is important to understand when you consider my service on that board. The school was founded in 1945 in Washington, D.C. at a time in which, by law, there was racial segregation in this community. Black students were not allowed in the public schools to go to school with white students. Georgetown Day School is a private school that was created when 3 white families, Jewish families, got together with 3 black families and said that despite the fact that the law requires us to separate, despite the fact that the law is set up to make sure that black children are not treated the same as everyone else, we are going to form a private school so that our children can go to school together. The idea of equality, justice, is at the core of the Georgetown Day School mission, and it's a private school such that every parent who joins the community does so willingly with an understanding that they are joining a community that is designed to make sure that every child is valued. Every child is treated as having inherent worth, and none are discriminated against because of race.
So, Judge Jackson, all of us will agree that no one should be discriminated against because of race.
I love that answer. Dr. Burnett,
Beautiful.
That is not the one I want you to comment on. Let me just make a real quick comment on that. There's something else I want you to hear that I want to get your comments on. Real quickly with that, he tried to say that he's trying to connect her job as a judge with critical race theory, and she has repeatedly said, I don't use critical race theory to do my job, okay? And Chloe and I, as practicing attorneys, know that judges don't use critical race theory to sentence people and decide cases. That is ridiculous. Again, they use the law. They use facts. They use the PDRs, what we call it here for juveniles, PSI for felony cases, arguments of counsel, both defense and prosecute. No one says, okay, get my critical race theory book out here. Let me see what I want to give. I mean, that's
yeah,
ridiculous.
you got a playbook or something.
It's stupid on its face, okay? And what she said about the Georgetown Day School, that is powerful. Please, I want you to hear this because I want you to comment on this, Dr. Burnett. Just a second.
When you just testified a minute ago that you didn't know if critical race theory was taught in K through 12, I will confess I find that statement a little hard to reconcile with the public record, because if you look at the Georgetown Day School's curriculum, it is filled and overflowing with critical race theory. That among the books that are either assigned or recommended, they include Critical Race Theory, an introduction, They include The End of Policing, an advocacy for abolishing police. They include How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi. They include literally stacks and stacks of books, and I'll tell you two of the ones that were most stunning. They include a book called Anti-Racist Baby by Ibram Kendi. And there are portions of this book that I find really quite remarkable. One portion.
Okay, Dr. Burnett, those books.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Once again, he has to make it clear that is a private school. That is not a public school. I'm at a private school, and this is the book that we read. I mean, as a group. And they're more in tune with what they're saying to educate every child, the exact same thing, regardless of where they're coming from. And so this was a book that we read as a staff last year. So I understand clearly what that Georgetown Day School is doing, because we're on the same page with the same thing. And this is a great book here. And so we have many different events like that. But once again, you cannot take what they're doing in private school and say this is what they're doing in all schools. I can guarantee you, like I said, I retired from Miami-Dade County Public Schools. They're not, of course, looking at these books as in a private school. So
Okay.
he has to differentiate between public and private, and they have no jurisdiction. I wish she would have stated that they have no jurisdiction over that private school in terms of what they are doing.
All right. So she goes on to say that she is, as a board member, she doesn't determine, they don't determine what curriculum is. Is that true with most private schools? Is that true with the school you're at? Do the board members determine the books, the curriculum, and so forth?
No, the teachers do. We submit it. Like I created 2 new courses, so it comes from that level up. But once again, a board sets guidelines. A board sets policy. They do not set the curriculum. As far as public school, that is derived, of course, from the state. The state, once again, devises what they're going to have for those standards. Now, of course, there can be some revision from this, from the each district, but it still has to be in the parameters of what the state is asking to be completed. But they are giving some discretion.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to fast forward. I want us to hear just a minute or two of this, and we're going to wrap this up.
Of the book says from the bench, thus, although this is not necessarily an atypical case, your child pornography possession crime was egregious in the court's view. Okay, so this is a bad one. If you're actually sentencing defendants, you said this was egregious. What did you sentence Stewart for? The guidelines said 97 to 121 months. Prosecutor said 97 months. You said it's egregious. 6,700 images. You come in with 57
Time
months.
has expired.
Why
Senators
did
used
you
2
sentence
minutes
him to
over the
just
allotted.
57 months? In the Stewart case, do you want to address that? Because you're claiming it's cherry picking. In fact, you're welcome to explain any of these cases, but let's take the Stewart case.
Senator
Why
Coons,
did you sentence him for half the amount?
you're not recognized, Senator. Senator
You
Coons,
you don't want her to answer that question?
you wouldn't allow her any.
Mr. Chairman, she may answer the question. I've asked her why she sentenced Stewart.
You've
an
gone over the
egregious-
time, Senator, by 2 minutes.
Why she,
and a half.
because you've interrupted me for 2 minutes, Mr. Chairman. Will you allow her to answer the question, or do you not want the American people to hear why, with someone she described as an
There
egregious...
comes a point, Senator, where you get a little bit.
Chairman Durbin, will you allow her to answer the question?
You won't allow her to answer.
I will happily allow her to. The question is,
Senator
why
Coons, you may
did you
proceed.
sentence Stewart, an egregious child pornography possessor, to
Judge Jackson.
half of the amount
Please, Senator.
requested by the prosecutor?
Please, Senator.
Will you allow her to answer the question, Chairman Durbin?
Senator Coons.
Why are you not allowing her to answer the question? There's
You're
not
over
another
the time
senator
by
here
2.5
that you've not allowed her to answer the question.
You're finished.
I'm not asking another question, but allow her to answer the question, Chairman Durbin.
Thank you, Chairman
Why
Durbin.
do you not want the American people to know what happened in the Stewart case or any of these cases? Chairman Durbin, I've never seen the chairman refused to allow a witness to answer a question. You can bang it as loud as you want.
Well, I can just tell you, at some point, you have to follow the rules.
Okay, will you let her answer the question? You've been interrupting, and by the way, with Senator Graham, it went 10 minutes over. You've
sure
taken a
did.
big chunk of the time. Will you allow her to answer the question?
You've given her.
Why
no
are you afraid of her?
opportunity to
She's
answer.
welcome to answer it right now. Will you let her?
Senator Coons.
Will you let? So no, you don't want her to answer the question?
Senator Coons.
Will you let her answer the question?
Chairman Durbin,
Apparently,
Judge
you are
Jackson.
very afraid of the American people hearing the answer to that question.
we here in the Senate, in this,
I find that disrespectful. I find that shameful. This is a federal judge. She's a sitting federal judge. Let me take a deep breath. Let me take a deep breath. Let me take a deep breath. This woman is a sitting federal circuit court judge. She is a federal judge with impeccable credentials. And for Ted Cruz to treat her so disrespectful. And he's trying to make her seem like she's pro-pedophilia. That is offensive, as my wife said earlier. And what happens is the people who listen to him, and there are a lot of them, they take what he says, don't know the facts, don't know the whole situation. They take what he says and they go out and they start repeating that Judge Jackson is pro-pedophilia. She's pro-child sex offender. She is a part of this. You know, the QAnon believes that folks are child molesters and molesting children in Pizza Hut and basements and all this kind of crazy stuff. Now, all of us up here find child pedophilia to be abhorrent, repugnant, low-down behavior, every one of us. And surely that great woman does, who has raised a daughter, who is a Christian woman, who, again, is a federal judge. The FBI, the ABA, and all other kinds of organizations that are conservative organizations as well, have dug so deeply in this woman's life, like you said, Tony, and the only thing they could come out with were looking at just a handful of cases over her 10 years on the bench, a handful of cases. And I'll say this and let you all close us out. Let me just put this one screen on the board. My wife brought this to my attention, and let me put it up here. Those same blowhards, Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, Lindsey Graham, they voted for these federal judges, GOP judges. And these judges did guess what? They deviated from prosecutors' recommendations. Guess what type of cases? In sex cases. But Josh Hawley, Lindsey Graham, and blowhard Ted Cruz voted yes to affirm their nominations. So why are they going all out on Judge Jackson, yet knowing they voted yes for judges who did the same thing?
Again, it's because she's African American, because they're wanting to just get these sound bites. They're wanting to grandstand. They're wanting to throw red meat to their base. They're unprincipled. They're just unprincipled people. I hate to say that, but their actions speak to support that. They are unprincipled people. I mean, Senator Graham voted to confirm her for the appellate court just in the past year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so now why is it it's just so hypocritical. It's a double standard. It's just, we're so politically divided, and so much partisanship, and it's no more, people are no longer statesmen, up there in Congress. It's just shameful. It's just pure shameful. And to me, to make her the brunt of all of this brokenness and all of this mess that they have going on up there, when she has lived her life above the mess, it's just horrible.
Chloe, hold on. Hold your comment, please. Let me play this. This is the final clip. I think this will close it out very, very, very well, and then wrap all that you got to say now, all of you, in sort of some closing remarks as we listen to Cory Booker.
Today, I just look at you and I start getting full of emotion. I'm jogging this morning, and I'm at the end of the block I live on. And I get terrified because I put my music on loud when I'm jogging, trying to block out the noise of the heart attack I'm having. And this woman comes up on me, practically tackles me, an African-American woman. And the look on her eyes, she just wanted to touch me, because I'm sitting so close to you, and tell me what it meant to her to watch you sitting where you're sitting. And you did not get there because of some left-wing agenda. You didn't get here because of some dark money groups. You got here how every black woman in America who's gotten anywhere has done, by being, like Ginger Rogers said, I did everything Fred Astaire did, but backwards in heels. And so I'm just sitting here saying, nobody's stealing my joy. Nobody's going to make me angry, especially not people that are called in a conservative magazine demagogic for what they're bringing up that just doesn't hold water. I'm not going to let my joy be stolen, because I know you and we appreciate something that we get that a lot of my colleagues don't. I know Tim Scott does. When I first came to this place, I was the 4th black person ever popularly elected to the United States Senate. And I still remember a lot of mixed people, white folks, black folks work here, but at night when people are in line to come in to clean this place, the percentage of minorities shift a lot. And so I'm walking here, first week I'm here, and somebody who's been here for decades doing the urgent work of the Senate, but it's the unglamorous work that goes on no matter who's in offices. The guy comes up to me, all he wants to say, I can tell, is, I'm so happy you're here. But he comes up and he can't get the words out. And this man, my elder, starts crying. And I just hugged him. And he just kept telling me, it is so good to see you here. It's so good to see you here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love my brother Tim Scott. We could write a dissertation on our disagreements. He gave the best speech on race. I wish I could have given good of a speech. But talking to the challenges and indignities that are still faced. And you're here. I was in the White House with my Democratic colleagues, and I'm in my joy. I can't help it. and the president's asking our advice, who should we nominate and whatever. And I look at Kamala and we have a knowing glance, which we've had for years when she and I used to sit on this end of this committee at times. And then I try to get out to the president what it means. What it means. And I want to tell you, when I look at you, this is why I get emotional. I'm sorry, you're a person that is so much more than your race and gender. You're a Christian, you're a mom, you're an intellect, you love books. But for me, I'm sorry, it's hard for me not to look at you and not see my mom, not to see my cousins, one of them who had to come here and sit behind you. She had to have your back. I see my ancestors and yours. Nobody's going to steal the joy of that woman in the street, or the calls that I'm getting, or the texts. Nobody's going to steal that joy. You have earned this spot. You are worthy. You are a great American. Your hero is Constance Baker Motley. Mine, she has sat on my desk for my offices that I've held. She's my icon of America. Her name is Harriet Tubman. There is a love in this country that is extraordinary. You admitted it about your parents. They loved this nation, even though there were laws preventing them from getting together. When they were loving, there were laws in this country that would have prevented you from marrying your husband. It wasn't that long ago, it was last generation. But they didn't stop loving this country, even though this country didn't love them back. And what were the words of your heroes and mine? What did Constance Baker Motley do? Did this country that she saw insult and injuries, when she came out of law school, law firms wouldn't even hire her because she was a woman. Did she become bitter? Did she try to create a revolution? No, she used the very constitution of this nation. She loved it so much, she wanted America to be America. As Langston Hughes wrote, "Oh, let America be America again." The land that never has been yet, but yet must be the land where everyone is free. Oh, yes, I say it plain, America never was America to me, but I swear this oath, America will be.
That has me in tears. He covered her. God had her. God had him there. She needed that. He sounded like a Baptist preacher with a prophetic ring in his voice. And he said what we all felt. Her experience is our experience. And the part, he said so much, but the part I loved the most was when he said, "You earned this spot. You did it right. You did everything right. You worked hard. You studied hard. You kept your nose clean. Stayed out of trouble. You deserve to be here." Y'all go ahead.
I felt that in every fiber of my being. Um, the way he covered her, the things he said, the way that he affirmed her, her intellect, her knowledge, her career, her experience, her family, her existence, basically. He affirmed her existence. And one thing that I loved about the way that Judge Jackson has conducted herself in these public hearings is the warmth that she portrays. You know, despite all of the attacks that came from the Republicans and the grueling questions, her smile, she continued to let her smile shine. And that resonated with me because I've always felt, okay, when people see that I'm an attorney or a professional, I have to show that I'm tough or that I have to be hardcore and I can't let my personality shine. But she really showed that you can be intelligent, you can be tough, you can capture a crowd, but you can keep your grace and your humility. And I'm sure that it comes from her faith as well. But I've been there. Almost every time I walk into a courtroom, I feel like I have to remind myself that I deserve to be there. So for Cory Booker to do that out loud in front of the nation, in front of the world, it was just really powerful.
I totally agree with what you're saying, Chloe. Definitely, it was needed, and I think that's the reason why, it was so much over, the course of this hearing that I would have probably cried at that point. She held up until at this point because the feeling, it was the flow of relief. That was that confirmation. He is saying they may insult you, but I support you. They may have humiliated you in some way, but I am here to support you. Not only me, but we have people all around here. Just to be a reminder, we have people all around you that are here to support you. They may try to demean you. They may try to degrade you. Every negative possible word that you could possibly think of, but we're not having it today. That is how he ended it. We're not having it. And I think that was so important. That was the confirmation. We're not having it. And she needed to hear that.
Yeah, after watching those hearings, look, I needed to hear it. And my wife and I, we watched a lot of it. And sweetheart, I'm wanting to know your thoughts here.
You all have said it. You all have said it so eloquently. I totally agree. Some people, there was a small debate, I think, online, whether she should have shown any emotion, even with what Senator Booker said. I don't see why there would be a debate, because I believe definitely someone affirming you in such a public way at such a needed time. We are emotional beings. She did not, I like what Dr. Bernice King said. No, it wasn't Dr. King. It was Charlene Ifer said she didn't show any of those tears when she was being attacked by the GOPs, but it was when Senator Booker came and just affirmed her. And she felt what all of us felt, you know? And I say most of us, because there are still some African-American people, African-American women, who are degrading this woman, who are calling her, you know, soft on crime and pro pedophilia, all of that foolishness. But the majority, I would tend to think, felt what she felt. And we all needed those words that Senator Booker used on that day. So I just pray that the country will get to a point where we don't have to just show our so composed selves and show our strength, but just can be a human like anybody else. Like Hillary Clinton, she was banging on the table when she went through her long hearing back there on concerning Benghazi. But if we do it, then we are the Black angry woman. And I pray we get to the point where we do not have to show how strong and restrain ourselves, but can be ourselves and really be judged upon our work, and not all of these extra, these extra, I don't know what the word is, things that they, you know, stereotype us as. So I would solicit that we pray for her family, you know, and pray for our nation. Our nation really needs prayer. I lament over what I see going on in our nation. So I thank you for moderating, and thank you, Dr. Burnett, and thank you, Chloe.
Thanks for having
for
me.
inviting. Yeah, thanks for having us on the Defiant Lawyers podcast.
This has been an absolutely wonderful discussion and conversation. And I think ending it with Cory Booker, the affirming words that he told Judge Jackson, that's something that all Black women need to hear. And I think it applies to all of us on this panel and everyone listening as well. I believe she's going to get confirmed, and I can't wait to see it. I'm going to be so happy.
Yes.
Dr. Burnett, if you would tell us, how can we get your book?
Yes. If you Google my name or the book, definitely, you know, Amazon, you can get it there. You can get it directly from my website, which is Dr. Keitha D. Burnett. You can .com. You can get it from there. So there are many different venues that carry this book. So the first one, definitely, all of you know, is definitely Amazon, but you can get it from my website by using my name, Keitha D. Burnett. .com, drkeithadburnett.com, or any of the others that will come up. There will be several.
Thank you so much
We'll
for
put it in the
joining.
description down below.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
so
what was that?
when they watch this video is being watched everywhere.
Okay.
We will leave the link to your book in the description on YouTube.
Okay.
So you should hopefully get a bump from here. And thank you again. Didn't mean to take so much
Thank
of your
you so
time
much.
on this beautiful Saturday. I actually cut out a lot, to be honest. There's so much went on with her hearings. But thank you, Chloe, for joining us. She was in a conference all week, so I know she's just wanting to kick back a little bit. But you know what? The work of a lawyer never ends.
I can imagine.
Sweetheart, thank you for sitting in with us today. You and I are going to just kind of get out in the sun a little bit after this. And thank you to our legal rebels. We had some comments. Let me just say this, do this real quickly. A Chief, one of the legal rebels, commented and said, "Hello, everyone. Hello to you, A Chief."
What's up?
And A Chief said she definitely did the thing. She sure did. She sure did. Thank you to all of you. Alicia, thank you for tuning in. You and DJ, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, you all, we are out of here. We are out of here. We hope before Easter, Dr. Jackson is confirmed and will become the first African-American woman to sit on the highest court. Now, everybody know, I may disagree with her on some issues. There's no doubt about that. Ain't no question about it. I know that's going to happen, okay? But that has nothing to do with my support for this black woman on this court. I'm so excited. I thought Obama should have done it. But it's better late than never. So, God bless you all. We're out of here.
Share,
Peace.
like, and share.
Like and share, share, and subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe.
Yes.
Love you all. Peace, soul,
Love y'all.
and
Take
love.
care.